Good time of day to all of you, my friends here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Yermolinsky, and today I'm happy to present you with round report. We call it game of the day, but I always want to show more than one game. From round 8 of the Norway chess tournament. And let me to all of you, my friends here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster... Oops, the mute wasn't on. Well, every time there is a new YouTube link, obviously, sound is not muted. Alright, so let me start with cross table now. Alright, so here's what we have. Levon Aronian, first place, 3 wins, no losses. Hikaru Nakamura just half point behind, needs one more win. And or Levon stumble to catch up, or possibly even overtake Levon. I'll point out a good tournament from Anish Giri. I'll remind you that he started off with a loss to Nakamura in a kind of a depressing game when he was in the defensive and probably should have held it, but then made a mistake, allowed the transition to a winning rook endgame for Nakamura. But Anish, interestingly enough, well, maybe that's what he needed, right? A loss to break his usual long drawing series. And he back on his feet and he's playing extremely well. Actually, the score that he has now, +1, probably doesn't fully reflect how well Anish plays in this tournament. Today he came fairly close to defeating Fabiano Caruana in a long game. Only it was a fortress because of the wrong color bishop for the h-pawn. But nonetheless, well, Anish is having a good tournament and he will have his chance playing against Vladimir Kramnik in the last round, as you can all see from there. And of course we're going to be talking about the world champion, and well, but he wasn't the only one who finally managed to light up the scoreboard. Same goes for Maxim Vashyevograf, who inflicted today a very painful defeat on Kramnik. At some moment, actually, at some moment of today's round, the game that I'm gonna show you, of course, Carlsen Karyakin, it reached this position where, I mean, Magnus clearly burned his bridges. He was going all in, trying to break out of the funk, and finally score a victory in this tournament. And he took some risks, maybe even more than he should have, objectively speaking. But no, what's objectively speaking when it comes to chess? Obviously, fortune favors the brave, but nonetheless, at some moment, Karyakin was simply better on the board. And at that time, Kramnik had an okay position. And I just have a feeling, I cannot prove it, of course, that Kramnik probably could not help himself, but still a look at Karyakin's game. And he thought, oh, gee, Karyakin may win today. And if I win, if only I can win, I'm going to be #1 in the rating list in the chess world. Well, that would be something. Actually, Kramnik was already asked in an interview, what do you think about this possibility? He tried to downplay it and he said, yeah, that would be sweet, but ultimately it's just not so important. Oh, yeah, right. I mean, I think that would be huge, but anyway, well, it didn't happen this way. So let us go first to the main game. It's Carlsen versus Karyakin. Of course, no, we all remember the World Championship match, which didn't turn out as many pundits, experts, whatnot, predicted. A cakewalk for Carlsen. Karyakin was on form. Maybe he was not already in his best form, which he was at the candidates. But nonetheless, he was well prepared, particularly physically and also mentally. And he put up a real tough fight, and as we all remember, it took tremendous effort from Magnus to just make the score even after 12 games of regulation. And then, when it came to rapid chess, no, objectively over there, well, probably the gap between Magnus and Sergei is larger. And Magnus was able to win a couple games and convincingly defended his title. But ever since that match, none of the participants was doing anything in their tournament chess. Well, Magnus kind of continued that slide that started sometime, maybe in 2014. I'm not sure. I think in 2014, maybe in the summer. I think the last really convincing tournament that Magnus won in style, the way he's been winning, he had been winning since 2011. I think there was the Gashimov Memorial in 2014. Magnus was simply class of the field. But then, things started happening. Caruana had this great start, 7 out of 7. Oh, great is an understatement. Amazing start. Fantastic start of the Singfield Cup tournament. And kind of Magnus, I don't know. No, it's not like he ever left spotlight. Obviously, he didn't. But already at that time, and it was almost 3 years ago, there were tournaments when other people, not necessarily the same person, were simply playing better than Magnus. Magnus kind of kept his level. He won some tournaments, mainly due to his persistence and ability to play decisive games very well. But all in all, his rating was just dropping. I will remind you guys, by the way, that Magnus was 2889 at one moment in the live rating list. Just 11 points from 2900. And everybody was saying like, okay, Magnus gonna be there, just one more effort, one more tournament. I can't really blame Magnus alone for this. Well, the problem was that his competition just lagging behind. They were all somewhere around 2800 rating. Well, they have a couple of good tournaments. They kind of emerge above that watershed, and then they dive again, and they're at 27, 80 or 90, and then they try to make a comeback. But all in all, it's hard to see them improving in general. So if they don't all improve I cannot call them a team, as a group of players, if they don't improve their rating, then what's Magnus supposed to do? He consistently scores. Maybe he used to score more. Maybe he used to score 2/3, like 66%. Now he consistently scores 60%. Okay, scored also until this year. Now, but what's 60% over the average rating of 2800? No, well, that's 2670. Now, so yeah, because it's 70 points difference would translate into 60% expected score. Yeah, Mr. Gunnarsson, we'll talk about this. Sorry, I'm struggle a little bit, particularly with my astigmatism, trying to read your first name correctly. If you forgive me for that. Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. Well, the classic chess, of course. Now we will talk a bit, of course, about Blitz and Rapid. It's a little different. But to continue my train of thought, I'm thinking, okay, if these guys, if they're over 2800, and the average rating of this tournament is not quite reaching it, it's 2793, but of course that's with Magnus included. But even when Magnus is at his best, put it this way, he can only score 60% against these guys. They adjusted. They no longer lose those long drawish endgames only because Magnus sits there willing to continue the game. They kind of adjusted to that, and generally also we have less of older players, and only the very best of them, Kramnik and Anand, still remain. So Magnus cannot get Gelfand, in the next round. And nothing against Boris, of course, great player as he is, but he always found it very hard to play against Magnus or Mickey Adams. No, so these guys that don't make the cut anymore. And it's just hard, for Magnus, the way he plays chess, to count on more than 60% score. And even if he had that, at best probably he can maintain his rating somewhere around 2850. And I mean, he can only get to 2890 if others climb up, but I don't see any indication that they ever will. Kramnik surprising underrated by chess fans, out all world champions. Probably number 3 after Kasparov and Fischer, safe for Carlsen. I find it real hard to compare strength of players from different era and all that. No, Kramnik obviously is an outstanding player and he earned his place in chess history. Well, but his work is not done. He is actually very ambitious and he knows that kind of time is running out. A little bit of a restlessness, a characteristic of old age. It kind of pushes him through. It helps him to stay young and ambitious and driven. No, it's just hard to fight against time, and today was a prime example of that. But anyway, let's go to the game. Let's see what's happening with Magnus, but first I want to offer my opinion on the rapid/blitz versus classical. Well, I know the ratings are published over there, but no, seriously speaking, aside of World and Rapid Championship, which is always held at the end of the year, it was held in somewhere in the Gulf last year, I forgot. I think they may have been Qatar. I don't remember. Aside of that tournament, they're not really so important. Actually, the main importance of Rapid and Blitz games is the tie-break factor in knockout championships. Magnus, by the way, said that he would very much love to play knockout tournaments. And I think it would help him a lot. Knowing his skills in Rapid and Blitz, no, I would expect him to be obviously not just one of the favorites, maybe the favorite to win a knockout tournament if all the best players got together. But with classical, no, you know how it is. Well, the opening decides a lot, and Magnus never been a big fan of studying opening theory, and he's never going to change his stripes. Well, he can choose sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly, opening for a particular game against a particular opponent, but it's kind of a hit and miss thing. And ultimately, in this tournament, you know what Magnus was the most upset with? Not his loss to Aronian, and I don't think even his loss to Kramnik. I think he was the most upset with his play in rounds 5 and 6, when he had 2 whites in a row against the 2 guys that he probably does not consider quite in his league. That would be Anish Giri and Maxim Vashev-Agraf. And Magnus got absolutely nothing with white in either of the games. If anything, he was actually worse against Giri. Everybody prepares better against world champion. No, well, you're marked man. That's how it is. Well, now, opinions about Aronian. But okay, anyway, I have to get the chess going. So today he's facing Karyakin. Now, about Karyakin. Well, Sergey went on the record saying, okay, since I have now my spot in the candidates tournament, this is my goal, I prepare for that. He sort of downplays his results in other tournaments. No, well, he's got something to downplay now, because honestly, you know, like, he's less than mediocre player in this company. And now he occupies last place and he really plays like it. Now, this game that we're about to see is actually more of a new bad Karyakin than a recovered good old Carlsen. Okay, so they start with the Nimza, and Magnus goes for the Rubinstein. But in this position, instead of going on a beaten path, you know, with knight f3, and then, I don't know, is it c5 or b6? I don't know what Karyakin had prepared, but whatever. Magnus plays this line that actually has a pretty good reputation. He puts his knight on e2. You know, it's quite similar to that line Garry Kasparov always liked to play. Okay, let me go back a little bit. Suppose we have Queen's Gambit, right? Then Bishop g5. Oh, pardon me, mistake. I meant the exchange variation. Bishop g5, bishop e7, there, c6, bishop there, castles, queen c2, knight d7, and now knight e2. What this whole thing is about, we know, right? It's about the Botvinnik pawn roller. Why do I call it the Botvinnik roller? No, well, he rolled his pawns up like this against Capablanca in a famous game from the great Avra tournament 1938 in Holland. So that's a textbook victory, can be found in any chess books. Probably you recall it. Now, so this is the plan that actually has a pretty good reputation here, and some people play it all the time rather than play the knight to f3. But in the game, we have a different situation, because white, because of somewhat self-restricting move e3, could not get his dark square bishop out. So when he's trying to do the same thing, that the bishop is not active on g5, pinning the knight and supporting this play in the center. It's just much harder for white to do this. But yet this modest system, it's quite popular. A lot of people play it. Now, kind of choice I would probably expect from Carlsen if I were preparing for him or advising a player to preparing for Carlsen and saying, I want to play the Nimza. This probably would be my first guess. It kind of fits Magnus's style. It's very unhurried, it's methodical, and white is not trying to do too much, and therefore he doesn't have to deal with a whole lot of theoretical variations that require precise tactical responses, knowledge. It's not like defending your turf against a Botvinnik Semislav or stuff like this. As far as confidence, it's an interesting question. Well, what is confidence after all? It comes from winning, right? Winning's contagious. You keep on winning, and then, you kind of take it for granted and you feel entitled to win. And this kind of thing, rubs off your opponents because they can't help but, feel scared or apprehensive, when they play you. But it comes in and goes because, people can be desensitized to anything. Even Nakamura, look how many games he lost to Carlsen. And many of those, Hikaru had good positions, maybe even winning positions. But it doesn't mean that it's going to continue. In fact, if anything, it's going to stop at one moment. I mean, we had examples like this in the history of chess. Korchnoi used to beat Tal and had a great score against Tal, even when Tal was world champion and winning every tournament, beating everybody in sight. But Victor had a great score against Tal. Yet toward the end of Tal's career and Tal's life, it reversed, and Tal actually did quite well against Korchnoi. Who knows? Those things are very fickle, they come and go. From my own experience, I had it. In some ways, it's almost your luck runs out, or you whatever, just use up, like the number of wins you could have against that particular guy. And, that's what it is. Another part of what we call confidence is confidence of youth. If I remember myself as a young player, and I played a lot of young players now and already in my, what I call, mature years. And yeah, they brim with confidence. And sometimes they say, they're full of confidence because they don't know better. They simply haven't been beat, enough. Once you take a few beatings, then probably you won't have this kind of confidence. So this is also that thing, that tends to snowball. That's why loss of confidence just rapidly cascades, and you just tumble down, and that's what it is. Okay, we'll return to this a little bit, back to the board in a bit, back to the board. Now, rook e8, bishop d2. No, that's the modest move with the bishop, but what else? First order of business for white is to kind of create a situation where black probably wouldn't want to go c5 just because white can occupy the d4 square. And particularly if he later transfers his knight to d4. I mean, it's probably possible to play c5. I'm just not sure it's such a great move. I mean, I don't know really, is that a3? Or maybe just capture. I'm just thinking in this position in general. Like white has some prospects. He can come out with that bishop to c3. He's got the c file. So I'm not sure that black needs to commit himself so early to the isolated pawn. Indeed, c5 is not... well, is not very common here. Kasparov already won the game before move 1. No, yeah, but okay, that's another thing. It's interesting to talk about this, but let me move on with the game a little bit. So black doesn't want to hurry with c5. Maybe he'll play it later on, then white makes his commitment to f3. But bishop f8, it's a very modest move. And I would say that it kind of fits into Karyakin's approach to chess these days. He just wants to be solid. And it's not only in chess where he earned himself a position by drawing, well, the regulation world championship match and defying all the critics, that were saying that he's going to be a tomato can. Over there he was not, obviously. He also, sort of his standing in life, that it underwent some changes. So, well, he's married happily with the second marriage. They already have one child, and I know that his wife is pregnant, so they're going to have a second child. Well, he also secured himself a position in the Russian society. We shouldn't forget that he didn't grow up in Russia, right? He grew up in Ukraine, in the Russian-speaking environment and Russian culture environment, but still moving from Crimea to Moscow, that was a step in life that it's not easy to take. And he did quite well in that. So he has a sponsorship, and he's even involved in some politics as sort of a celebrity, as chess... leading chess player in Russia. So I don't know if it's really helpful or not. Some people they can handle this kind of workload easier. I think Karpov, it never slowed down Karpov, but Karpov is a player type. He never liked to over prepare, and he always liked to play. And preparation was basically a job for his coaches. And then, but once it would come to actual chess playing, Karpov would just sit down and play, and it didn't matter to him, how well prepared he was for that. But, okay, that was Karpov. Karyakin is somewhat different. I think he does get distracted by those things. It's just my guess, because I have never spoken one word with Sergei. Only saw him face to face once years and years ago, when he was just a young prodigy, a very young boy. We played in a tournament together. Moving up the social ladder. How does that work in Russia? Like in every other country, I guess you just get connected, and there is some kind of... it's not like he has a job with the government, but there are... I don't know if I call it a committee or some kind of... it's just a bunch of people sitting around, and discussing something. I don't know, whatever it is. And he's there, just how it is. More of a public service, I guess, but than a career. But then again, it could be very helpful for a chess player, have a solid support behind you. But all these things, they're helpful and yet they're distracting. So I'm thinking what happened with Karyakin, he really had done tremendous work in 2015 and 2016, sharpening his play. He's really pretty strong in calculation and gifted tactical player. We've seen this many times ever since he came up as a youngster. He has the attacking ability and all that, but he always had this tendency of just playing too solidly, if not passively. And he'd done some work, a lot of it. You know who was helping him with that? Mamidyarov. Well, you rub shoulders with Shakhriyar Mamidyarov, you just can't help it, but you'll play more actively. But I think the collaboration ended now. They probably remained big friends, or good friends. But Shakhriyar now has his own fish to fry. He's 2800 and he's waiting for his chance to take a crack, at these people. Norway crowd. So Sergei kind of reverted back to these bad old habits. I mean, for example, in this position, there is this move, bishop d6. Well, I mean, just put the bishop there against the h2 pawn. The white knight, after all, is not on f3. And this move was played by many. It used to be the most popular move. Even probably still the most popular move. It's bishop d6. Jad Dean, you considered Levon Aronev to be a defensive solid player. I think you must have confused him with somebody else. Aronev never had the classic attacking style, obviously. But he's always extremely aggressive, always been. No, he is, I don't know, I think your opinion is wrong. I don't think Aronin has undertaken any change in his style. Well, we'll talk about Levon if we have time today. No, d5 is not. That's precisely why the white bishop is so much better off on g5. It makes it more difficult for black to tolerate the spin because of the attack on d5. And when push comes to shove, that bishop can return to g3 and protect the king. It's not happening here with the bishop on d2. Now, I follow one game. That was a rapid game. White was a Russian player, Denis Hizmatulin. Pretty strong and steady player, 26 to 2650 area. Good friend and second to Alexander Grishuk. Hizmatulin's opponent was no one else but Vishy Anand himself. So Vishy is looking at this position. It's like first thing he's looking at, how about the Greek gift thing, right? Well, the problem is that white brings the king up. Now, if you try the standard move queen g5, speaking of Aronin attack against Carlsen, right? You all saw that. Well, it's not quite working here. I don't think so. I think white has this move, and it hits the queen. And as you get the queen to the h file, to give the check from h2, no, well, white has the defensive move. No, well, and also attacking h7, so there's nothing happening near the white king. So we could look at queen d6, of course. And now, white can play f4. Even that move is enough to discourage black from the sacrifice, because here I don't think there is anything better but taking the pawn on a3. Well, your friends are not watching the show. Well, they're not your friends. No, they're not. If they were really your friends, they would be all there listening to me and talking and to each other like you guys do. Oh, gotta be selective. Yeah, here I think this capture on a3 is still not enough. I mean, look at these guys. They're not quite there. Getting the second pawn is just not gonna be enough. Also, white can even play this. It's all based on white's great development. Modest, but the pieces are mobilized. And you will see in one fascinating line. Obviously, we played g5, right? But there is one totally fascinating line. Hang on a second. I always have to check my analysis, so I won't mess up. Now this move. Yeah, white is actually quite okay with recapturing with the pawn, because his king is never gonna come under attack from the queen. G6 is covered by the bishop, and moreover, now we have some problems on h7. Oh, wait with the girlfriend, look at the board, people. And there is an amazing continuation to this line. So place this. Now black I'm winning, right? I'm totally winning. I got the pawn there, I'm on the knight. I blocked the attack against h7. But there it comes. That little rook on c1, look at the bishop on c8. Now the rook comes under attack, and strangely enough, black's position is about to fall apart. He cannot do anything to the king on g3. His king is actually in a worse shape. And bad development. White will generate powerful attack really in a matter of moves. So okay, we're coming back to this. And what did Visha Anand do in this position? He played the move knight g4. It wasn't a novelty, by the way. It's actually quite a legitimate move. The thing is that, obviously, with knight g3, you don't want to do this. The queen comes to h4, and white's already in trouble, losing probably. And you don't get to play your move f3, because the pawn hangs. You can play g3, granted, but g3 is... No, the knight's gonna stay on g4 for some time. Just to stop the white f-pawn from moving. No, pardon, to f3, of course. So Hizmatulin took a terrible risk by playing h3. And now Anand went deep and hard. Knight check. Oh boy, I thought Anand was gonna win this game. He has, the face of it, he has a crush in attack. But somehow Visha misplayed it, and he even lost that game. But it was a rapid game. Fact remains, if you analyze this a little bit with a computer, you'll see that black is guaranteed a draw and can do more. So my first question, why, somebody made a comment that Carlsen is, kinda susceptible these days to sacrificial attacks. Both games he lost at this tournament, his king got in trouble. Serious trouble, and also his queen against Aronian, but then Aronian switched to the king. Kramnik. Well, Magnus admitted that he simply missed that shot, bishop takes h6. It wasn't even a sacrifice. Simply Magnus, particularly in kind of form he is now, is just not paying enough attention to his king. And many things probably go through his head, and he's angry with himself, and he made it clear, and he wants to win, wants to redeem himself. But, well, good form and I know, good state of mind in chess, it's a very difficult thing to maintain, it's elusive and it's fickle, and once it abandons you, you can't really bring it back, you can't muscle it. I mean, I struggled with this, that for 10 years probably. I mean, okay, I was never Magnus Carlsen, but I was a pretty decent player of my own, and I had a great run in my late 30s. Since, I don't know, 35 to 40, about so. But then life in circumstances this, got married, family, moved to California, job, this and that. And, but I was surprised, how my chess, fell off the cliff. And the harder I tried, to bring back the old magic, the old Yerminator, whatever they... silly moniker I had, the worse it was getting, worse and worse. I mean, I've seen it in other people too. Well, for Karyakin, he needs to... I mean, who has it? Well, Nakamura for sure. Well, Aronian, so the ability to adjust your game for a particular opponent and particular situation, the condition your opponent is in. He absolutely had to go bishop d6. He had to bother Magnus, with these things. Besides, he just had an example to follow. I really don't know why, Sergei thinks that he has to build up those defenses. kind of laughs at this nickname, the Minister of Defense. No, it's very nice, indeed, great escapes, including against Wesley So in this tournament. But I mean, you tempt your fate, and too many times, and well, there'll be some losses. And he has a couple. By the way, was it 2 games in a row that he lost? Yeah. By the way, both times he's king. Now, another thing about defenders, right? Well, I know I move slow with the chess moves, but another thing about defenders, guys. Well, there are 2 types of worse positions you might have to defend. One of them is like this Karyakin kind of fortress in the endgame, and it looks lost maybe, but he just fights on and finds the all last resources, including stalemate. But it's kind of a slow process. It is. I was actually pretty good at that stuff myself. Well, not Karyakin good, but pretty good for my level. Once you put yourself in with this mindset, psychologically, that you're not being tortured, you're defying, the odds. The opponent with the advantage who counts on the Swede being in his pocket, gets more and more frustrated. And you sit there like a rock, or maybe even like Kamsky. And all his efforts, you got answers to everything. It's kind of a cool feeling, but there is another kind of defensive situation we end up with. Sudden change. Suddenly your king is open with long time, and you have to think fast. Who defends best in such positions? Hikaru Nakamura. He's like really, really good at that stuff. Karyakin? I don't think so. Both games that he lost to Aronian and Carlsen today, he was simply unable to kind of organize defenses for his king. It's a different kind of thing. You're Minister of Defense in peacetime, but maybe not in wartime. So the game goes, b6. Now, it's a known plan with c5. But I have a feeling that maybe it's played a little bit too soon. White didn't make a commitment with this move. And while his pieces are a little bit awkward here, somewhat stepping on each other's feet, nonetheless, direct play against those hanging pawns is available. And that's what Magnus loves. Well, what Karyakin needed to do, he needed to somehow make Magnus move forward with his pawns, to open up a little bit, because Magnus could get careless. In this situation, well, Magnus would play the best moves, and it's a Magnus kind of position. Okay, I'm following my notes here. What do I have? Bishop b7 was played. Well, there is this move, bishop a6. No, it looks very risky because we're moving away and trading away the protector of the d5 pawn. But the funny thing is that when you play with the hanging pawns, and actually I had I recorded a few videos on the hanging pawns based on Karyakin's games, his own games from the candidates tournament. When he came up to the tournament prepared with this line in the Queen's Indian, where black goes for the hanging pawns, and he played it reasonably well. Well, you can't really call your position safe, but there are always tactical defenses. And like in this position, I can offer you one line. Suppose white takes now, right? And suppose we take on d3. Suppose it's not a forced line. Now comes this. And white plays the logical move, knight a4. You always want to hit the pawns and make one of them move. You accomplished that. Great. Now the knight returns. And it looks like that white is about to play bishop to c3, then exchange this knight and win the pawn on d5, right? But that's exactly a kind of position where black can use his active defense with a pawn sacrifice. I actually looked at this position, and because of the terrible knight on a4, I don't know if white really has any advantage here. Black plans to play knight d5. That's gonna be next move. Nice blockade. Counterplay against the pawn on d4. Well, Karyakin's too solid for that now, so he plays bishop b7. Okay. Queen f3. And the last move that is kind of a mechanical move, and I really dislike it. I mean, before that I was just offering suggestions. Yeah, fat tire. Not a bad choice. Yeah. So the one last move that Karyakin probably considered, part of his plan, that's something that he's supposed to do. Knight a6. Well, yeah, against this bishop on g2 and those lines of Queen's Indian, the knight has to go to a6. The white knight is always on e5, and you actually don't want to exchange it because you want that knight to be little shaky, so white cannot take on c5 and play directly against the hanging pawns because the knight is on a5. That's why I don't put it on c6 or d7. Here, it's not a good move. What black should be doing here, she should be thinking, okay, I need to close the position because it doesn't really have the attacking setup of Pillsbury with the knight on e5 and the pawn on f4. And he doesn't have the dark square bishop there to punish me for playing g6. One move g6 with the fianchetted bishop, if needed, will defend the king against the knight, queen, and light square bishop. Well, there's one problem. If we play c4 in this position, we blunder the pawn away, right? That's what black should be thinking of. He should be thinking of threatening, making a c4 a threat. And to me, the best move was bishop c6. Before anybody tells me, you never play a move like this, and I go, why? Oh, because of knight e5. Yeah, where's your knight e5 now? You don't have it. You don't even have knight d3, knight e5. You just don't have it. Bishop c6 is the move. Not only I'm playing c4 next. Suppose you're doing like this. I also have b5. Black's already better here. He's gonna play b4 pretty soon, and start his play on the queen side. Well, this kind of moves like knight a6, well, I mean, maybe I'm asking too much, and I know that modern players, the top players, they have to play all the time, and no, they have to follow the script and they have to follow the preparation, but it just frustrates me, when I see this mechanical, uninspiring play, like moves like knight a6. I mean, I could play a move like this, for crying out loud. Nobody would pay money to watch me play. You pay money to watch me talk, that's a different story. Anyway, Carlsen goes rook d1. Now, if you try to bring that knight around, at least to protect this one, immediate problem hits you right there. This move. Once again, you probably don't want to play this move c4. I mean, you surrender in the d4 square, and it doesn't make your d5 pawn any safer. You cannot play d4 ever to use the bad position of this queen, because the bishop is not protected. I looked at this move. I looked at... What did I look at? I look at knight e4, I think. Yeah, knight e4. Yeah, standard reaction. Maybe we don't mind splitting our pawns, but we get the pawn over there, the bishop pair, but no, we're not getting anything. Who put the knight on c7? It's nothing but huge liability. Now black's already in trouble. White's threatening to play b4 most likely. White's threatening to take as well. This, I lost the game once to Wesley So. Well, the only one and only time I played Wesley, and I will ever play him. I misplayed. I played one wrong move with my hanging pawns, and there was something similar. You know what they say about the hanging pawns? Infant mortality. I got two words for you, Mr. Hanging Pawns. Infant mortality. You really have to go through the first 5, if not 10 moves with your hanging pawns. Then you're gonna be okay. So he takes. Now right, this is dull. Anytime you get the structure and your bishop is fianchetted, you always stand worse. That's how it is. But I give credit to Karyakin. He plays it well. Maybe Magnus didn't play best moves. But Sergey played a very nice move, knight e4. I like this move a lot. And he got that under control, so he's not losing anything over there. And he protects the pawn on d5 indirectly, but let me show you what it is about. Right? Nice shot. Well, maybe black is better now. Isolated pawn, nice blockade, shaky king, bishop, so-so. So Sergey uses, well, now he plays it exactly like it's supposed to play it. Not necessarily simple defensive moves, little bit of imagination there and the tactical indirect defenses. So he earns himself this trade. And now, okay, let's try to get into Magnus's head. Why bishop, I don't know if bishop c2 was so bad. He wanted to get the bishop out there to attack the pawn. I have no better suggestions. Honestly, I didn't have that much time to analyze this game, and I'm not really interested in this variation so much. If I'm white, I never play like this, and I'm black, for sure I'll play bishop d6 instead of bishop f8. Now, Magnus of the year 2011, 2012, 2013 would take on c3 with the rook without thinking. Why? Hey, he felt no pressure at all. He was always in a good tournament position. Yeah, sometimes people would make a draw, maybe. But Magnus would win a lot of positions like this. Now he's in a different situation. He's looking at the -2 score, last place in the tournament. Right there in front of home crowd. He already bolted, from a press conference, cancelled his regular appearance on Norwegian television. He may even get in a bit of a trouble there in terms of breaching the contract, but I don't know how hard they're gonna go on him, but I mean, it's up to his managers to fix. Knight b5 was there. No, maybe he didn't want to trade this. Okay, we can come back to this, Dutchman. I think I looked at this move, however, briefly. It looks attractive, I agree, but no, the rook does have some squares. Maybe it goes to e4. I mean, there is something about trading the awkward knight on c7 that Magnus didn't like. I mean, you can't claim, that this move is so much better than bishop c2. But you say you would go knight b5. Granted. Wasn't a bad idea at all. He played what he played. I'm coming to this. To me, it's a critical moment. But Magnus now, he's looking at the hopeless tournament situation. This image problems, whatever. This media obviously bothers him. It would bother anybody. I was honestly, shocked when they had this Olympiad in Tromsø and how all this media circus, around Magnus. Well, once again, I don't know. Let me really go out on a limb, You know me, right? I never hold my peace. I don't care. Now I would say that these guys who surround Magnus, basically it's his family members. Are they really acting in his best interest? Well, they think they know. I mean, I have children. Well, I don't know how to act in their best interest. Probably half the time, if not more often, I'm wrong and I'm making things worse. Now, well, you really think, that Magnus's father, Henrik Carlson is a better parent than I am? Maybe he is. I don't know. Well, good for him, good for Magnus. But if I had to guess, from my life experience, most of the time parents who try to micromanage their kids' lives, and not kids like 5 or 7 year olds. Magnus, 27 years old, for crying out loud. Isn't that about time, they take backstage? Even Rustam Kamsky took that backstage, in Gata's life, when Gata reached Magnus's age. I mean, seriously, enough is enough. Now, well, do they do anything to protect him from this media circus? No. They think they do him a favor by promoting him and doing this, like, what does it care? He makes enough money to pay his own bills. Maybe he even makes enough to let them ride on his coattails. I mean, everybody's looking out for the best interest, and this parent, child, whatever, son, daughter relationship, and it often is no exception, for this. I mean, it's not necessarily material interest, but, I mean, really, rant, big time rant. I mean, I don't get it, I've seen so many examples of, people trying to help their family members, whatever, get them involved. Okay, I got the sudden stroke of luck. I'm a millionaire now, whatever. I signed the NBA contract. Out of the woodwork come out all sorts of relatives. I don't know, you have to help everybody, and, well, nothing good ever comes out of this. So that's one thing, Thing number two, what was all this noise about? Magnus is hurt because of the refusal of Aegon to consider that Norwegian bid for World Championship match. Well, guess what they did? They asked the government to give them money. I can do it. Well, I can do it. I can write a random letter, to President Trump or whoever's in charge over there. I haven't checked in a few days, but doesn't matter, and tell them, wow, would you please, give me $10 million so I can run a world championship chess match. That's all they did. Went to the government, managerial team. Are you kidding me? In 21st century, you ask the government, and you hope to get money from the government? Pfft. What a joke. It's joke of jokes. So, anyway, apparently, that these guys are not really doing a good job, helping Magnus in any kind of respect. So, all right, kid, time to realize, that you'll be lucky if there will be very few people, your immediate family, your wife, whatever, who will have your back. Maybe some of your closest friends. Anyway, so Magnus now is indeed in a difficult situation. Now, I don't know anything about the girlfriend. I haven't seen her pictures. I mean, a girlfriend, once again, is that... I had a friend, right, with the phantom girlfriend. Was always talking about his girlfriend, even buying things for the girlfriend. Nobody ever saw her. Well, I mean, I don't know, is that a figment of imagination? If he has a girlfriend, where is she? I haven't seen her pictures. Back to chess? Sorry. Okay, anyway, I don't buy that into this girlfriend thing, Like, I wish Magnus, utmost happiness in his personal life, and I'm sure he will reach it because he seems a nice guy. And, I mean, what's not to like in Magnus? He deserves the best girl in the world. But, I mean, why should that be a negative factor in his chess? Why should be happiness in your personal life? A chess player is supposed to be monks? Don't know. I mean, Boris Spassky had a pretty good chess career, and Mikhail Tal as well. It didn't seem like, they had any shortage of female admiration. I don't get it. Anyway, so Magnus decides enough is enough. I'm gonna solve this thing right now. I'm just gonna right now. I'm just gonna turn this thing around, and he takes with the pawn. Okay, bishop c6. The knight goes to the king's side. Good defensive move there. Magnus had his eye on bishop h6 shot. If you play this, part of a plan, in comes Magnus with his tactical shot, the f6 square fork. Okay, good defense. The Minister of Defense is doing his job. Well, little too eager. I mean, he needed this move, rook a1. Makes it much more difficult, because then the bishop can escape the trade or possibly come to f5. Inaccurate. Now Karyakin plays a great move. Well, Magnus missed it for sure. I haven't watched the game live or anything, you know. I could tell that he missed it. You know, just... I don't think he ever planned to play c4, but now Magnus knows. He stepped on this path, you know. He is just... boom or bust. Anyway, so he goes for it. I mean, I admire it, you know. This game in many ways restored my belief in Magnus, even though, you know, like some of his moves can be criticized. And you can see later too. But I mean, the spirit was there. He really looked totally pissed, you know, like enough is enough. I go c4. Minister of Defense finds a great move. Well, the rook must protect the king. Now this doesn't do anything, right? Because black will easily recapture over there, because the knight is also hanging. He missed. Oh, you saw it on the video. I never had a chance, you know. Guys, I was busy today. I'm just very intense day, and my wife is coming back from visiting her parents in Lithuania tonight. So I'm kind of running, you know, full steam today, you know, with not a chance, you know, to do any of the fun stuff. But anyways, of course it wasn't played. Bishop d4. Yeah. Both players got little low on time at that moment. All the same, this is probably not the best move. Objectively speaking, White had to do this and keep bothering that rook with knight f4. On this, as a decent move in queen g4, suddenly creating this threat of bishop d4, because rook takes f4 would be impossible on account of mate. I looked a little bit. I think White has enough. So Magnus's play with bc3 and c4, they're actually not that far off as far from objectively best moves. So his great intuition and understanding of the game still kind of keeps him within, you know, bounds of reason. Even if he knows that he's taking chances he normally wouldn't take. No interviews? What do you mean, no interviews? Oh, you mean, but he was on television until recently. Like half the tournament, Carlsen was duly appearing on television right after his game was over, didn't he? I was under impression. I don't know about canceling any interviews, you know. Okay, there are interviews and interviews. I guess it's okay, you know, if you say a few words, you know, particularly if you drew the game or won the game, of course, like it's done. But a player who's having a bad tournament loses the game, you know, should be left alone. I don't really like, you know, this. I told you the story already, right? Well, one of the playoff games, you know, in baseball, the Cleveland Indians, I was a big supporter. I lived in Cleveland. They had the slugger, this big black guy, Albert Bell, with a very short fuse, you know. So he would If he didn't like something, he would take his bat, like to a boombox if they play too much salsa music or whatever, bad game, he would smash the air conditioner, kind of stuff. He wasn't really a mean guy, just kind of short-tempered guy. Anyway, so the Cleveland Indians, they play in this playoff game and whatever, they lose it. And of course, there's a female TV person over there with the microphone and dressed to the nines and all that, just sidling over to Albert Bell and saying, Albert, you went 0 for 4 today and you left 7 men on base. What do you think about it? What are your feelings about that? Well, back then they didn't really have that 10-second delay on live television, so, millions of viewers, caught at least the beginning of Albert Bell's reply to that lady. I mean, seriously, is this good journalism? I mean, I think it's not good journalism. You don't do this kind of stuff. I mean, I understand that these guys are all pros and they get paid for this, but no, it's still taking it too far. I would say Dutch Grandmaster who? You're talking Dirk Janten? He's the editor of New in Chess. I know him quite well. I've known him for 25 years. Well, I think he's an okay guy, like in most cases. So anyway, Magnus had this. So his position is okay here. Well, Bishop d4 maybe was a little bit too much. Now comes this. And here Karyakin took the pawn on a2. Well, it's almost like Sergei is torn between his desire to play solid chess and something that he promised to himself and his coaches, or to his wife, I don't know, whoever, to play actively and never look back. So here just his guesses are off, Queen takes a2 probably is not a losing move, but seriously, if you look at this position, you know that white is gonna take on g7. He simply has nothing else. Black doesn't have to make it so obvious for Magnus, like, hey, you're down 2 pawns, what are you gonna do now? Give up your pieces? 2 pieces for a rook? Haha. You don't really have to make it so obvious. You can play the defensive move knight e8. It doesn't really hurt Black so much. Well then, you're in position to continue with b5. Maybe you would take the pawn on a2, but I wouldn't give a high priority to capturing this pawn. And I guess not too many people would. Black's better here. It's very difficult for white to generate anything. This is a pretty solid blockade for the d pawn, and g7 is protected. One thing is the awkward position of the knight. Maybe Karyakin didn't like it, but no, so far he's not losing this knight. So that was probably his best choice. Came pawn grab. No, well, Magnus didn't need any invitations. Once again, psychologically speaking, Sergei's choices were off today. He simply kind of followed Magnus and even if the moves were not entirely correct from Carlsen, yet, Magnus kinda had the ability to send the game into the direction he wanted. That was just completely not taken into account by Karyakin. Well, and objectively speaking, white now is not worse. He can make a draw. White gets this pawn. But that could have been Magnus's last mistake in the tournament. Rook takes c4. Well, thing is, Black just moved the queen to b2, right? That secures the diagonal. The Black king is only 2 steps away from safe square on h8. It wouldn't be a safe square if white had minor pieces. The bishop there to support the queen with the attack, or better yet, the bishop on d4. But away from the rooks, h8 is going to be pretty safe square. I don't even see a clear rook leaf to the h-file. Do you see it? h3 is taken. Doing it from the 4th rank, it's questionable if it will work. Probably white is gonna have to keep one of the rooks in the back for defensive purposes against checks and back rank mates. Black gets the king to h8, he's clearly better. This is a winning advantage for any endgame. So instead of rook c4, obviously Magnus had to give this check. You gotta drive the king out, seriously. Now white is probably okay. I looked at this line a little bit. No, white is not that far behind material-wise. Rook for bishop and knight. That king is gonna be a constant source of aggravation. Queen e5. No, g3. Maybe even this. I wanna make a threat. Long way to go for the B and A pawns in the middle game for sure. Now after rook c4, I tell you one thing. If Karyakin played king g7, I have no idea why he didn't play this move. If he only played this move, Carlsen would have been -3 and a dead last in this tournament. And then we would really be talking. Now, we would really be talking, you know, what's wrong with Magnus, what's this with the girlfriend, what's with the World Championship match being held, you know, and whatever, instead of his home country. By the way Magnus plays in Norway, I would take any country in the world. Okay, maybe this side of North Korea, you know, I would take any country in the world, if I were him, to play the World Championship match. I mean, any. Away from the media circus. But in this position, I know what's best move. Okay, you cannot do anything. The queen's coming to e5. Even rook c6 is useless. I mean, this position, with the safe king on h8, black is significantly better here. And it would take a tremendous effort from white to find some kind of tricks, you know, make some kind of threats. All black needs to do is just to read and react, not to blunder. Both players in time trouble with still 7 moves to go. I would say Carlsen may not even survive till time control without, just getting totally lost. Now, what's with Karyakin and why he cannot find these moves? I don't know, something is not right with Sergei's chess. Basically, both players are struggling. And, one of them had to win today, and it was Magnus. To the end of the game. Now, these are meaningless moves. They're not bad and they're not good. They're just shuffling pieces because, they need to make the time control. I mean, it's nowhere near a level of play when low on time that Nakamura demonstrates, or Grishuk, that these guys, they actually play pretty good moves, even when low on time. Now, this is not. This is just shuffling of the pieces, and both players are happy they don't have to calculate anything. Suddenly they play like a team. Okay. Well, I know it's move 40. Maybe if Sergei had a little bit more time. But I mean, the refutation of this move is nowhere to be found. Nothing really happens because you just steal this pawn and then you come back. Then you come back. You can come to e7, you can protect your king. The same way he did in the game, only eliminate this passed pawn. I mean, talking about a total lack of confidence, I'm sure that Karyakin could not show one line if anybody asked him after the game. Why didn't you take on d5, Sergei? Say, the only thing you can say, I thought it was too risky. It was move 40. I was low on time. Well, Alekhine famously said that an excuse, a chess player, that I was low on time is the same as the excuse of a lawbreaker, a criminal, that he was drunk while committing the crime. You put yourself in this situation. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you. Knight takes d5 obviously had to be played. Useless. Okay, now if he comes back queen g7, not much harm is done. Well, the position is probably about equal now. Karyakin spends 25 minutes in this position. Time control has been made. 25 minutes. And plays arguably the worst move. I mean, what is that about? Was he defending against rook e5? Why is his bishop better off on d6? Not to mention that he ignores a pretty obvious threat. Check. You must go back with the knight. This, rook lift on the knight. Okay, I give credit, Magnus found this move. It wasn't so difficult to find. This, of course, wins the queen. And the other capture, white infiltrates, hits that bishop that was stupidly put on pre, so black has no time to play queen g7, which he would have played with the bishop on c5. You move that bishop back. Something will win the game. This will win the game. Mate. Oh well. So this is how this game ended. Now, I know it was an important game. It's a fascinating game because the World Championship match and the bad form for both players and all that. But objectively, chess quality-wise, that was the worst game of the tournament. I don't know. I don't have any record of Dirk ever playing tournament chess. Well, he kind of, no, well, when you're around, you probably pick up, the few things there. He knows chess history. He knows the openings. I mean, he's a chess journalist. I don't know what we expect from him. So he never played chess, Well, I don't know. Tune in. I haven't done it in 10 years, but tune into NFL today, there'll be somebody in the studio who never played the game, right? Not only the guys who played the game, I probably less and less of them, percentage-wise. Am I critical? Of whom? Georgios. So I said that was a bad game. What am I supposed to tell you? What am I supposed to, he played rook takes g8, well, is all sins forgiven now? You win the game with brilliant combination. Now, as far as Magnus come back, well, I don't know. Well, he only has one game, and he has the black pieces against Anand. I don't expect a full battle tomorrow. I think Magnus is mentally exhausted and spent, and I don't think he's going to rock the boat. And Anand having the white pieces, and he's away from last place. Okay, -1 result, but he was at -2 and in last place, so he's kind of okay with that. Both players had somewhat salvaged whatever was to salvage from their tournaments. I actually expect a rather uneventful draw tomorrow. Or kind of critical. No, well, I mean, obviously you haven't seen me in my real form. Yeah, well, I'm Jesus. I'm just warming up, guys. Anyway, as far as breaking out of the slump, one game doesn't do this. In my own practice, I had twice. I think I had 4 losses in a row, then I would win the next game. You know what? I didn't stop the slump. No. I think I would lose the next day, or I didn't recover. There's no recovery from this. The only thing that helps you to recover is time. Time heals all wounds. Another thing is little change of scenery. Not only in the sense of moving from Norway to France, as they all going to do later this month. Change of scenery in terms of time control. Coming back to what we discussed earlier today, Magnus is way more comfortable playing rapid and blitz. because he doesn't have to think about his obligations and whatnot. Lets his game flow, and generally speaking, he's quite quick on the uptake, so he grasps the position very quickly. He can see tactics fairly quickly. Certainly, look at how he plays this 1 minute chess and all that. They did this kind of stuff. There are probably going to be mistakes from Carlsen, but also from his opponents. I expect Magnus to play extremely well in both Paris and Leuven rapid/blitz stages of the Grand Chess Tour. After that, I'm not sure, if Magnus is going to play anywhere else, slow chess, classical chess, until the Sinquefield Cup. Now, we will hold on until after the Sinquefield Cup to really, kind of decide one way or another if Magnus is back on his usual normal self. Yeah, Dimitros, of course it was nothing. Oh, Jesus, one day, Alright, guys. Okay, we have a few more, maybe 20 minutes. Now, let's talk about other players. Now, you were talking about Aronian. No, Levon, he's sort of like, like he was shackled, He's like reborn. He is, you know what he said? One little thing there. He said, this year I don't travel to tournaments with my second. Okay. I'm not even sure that his many years girlfriend, Ariane, I don't know if she's there. But no, she's a Filipino girl, so she wouldn't bother him, they know how to treat their men. Anyway, but second, he says, I'm just happy, because I prepare myself and I don't have to listen to anybody and I don't feel kind of responsibility and that's good actually. Why does a chess player need a second? Just for company? No, well, sometimes when things go well for you, then you have some good things to share. But to have somebody to commiserate with, I wouldn't say so. Most of the tournaments I played in, I was all just by myself, and that's really the best. You can pick up a little bit of social stuff, you can hang out with other guys from the tournament, you can have a meal together, but then you retire to kind of privacy of your room and you rest and prepare for the next round. I think Levon made absolutely the right decision, and it may be more important than other people think. So, Levon has been playing great. That's simply great, This Grenka tournament, he even could have beaten Caruana in the last round to make his score even more. And here he's +3, and things go in his way. However, we've seen Levon playing great before, in tournaments like this. We cannot really say anything until, he does the same in the candidates tournament. His candidates tournaments and the matches, he started with matches, losing to Grishuk immediately and going home in Kazan 2011, or 2012 it was, I don't even remember. Candidates tournaments 2013, probably was 2011, 2013 London, 2014 Khanty-Mansiysk, 2016 Moscow. Good start, sharing first place halfway through, total meltdown in the second half of the tournament. Now, it happened 3 times. No, it's a pattern, right? Accident, coincidence, and then pattern. No, well, I wish Levon all kinds of success. He's an exciting player and a nice guy from what I heard. But it's too early to tell that he's different Levon now. Who knows how it's gonna play out. Caruana is totally flat, unrecognizable. I guess the grind of playing so many tournaments, they play all the time from one tournament to another, contractual obligations. I personally think that for both Wesley So and Fabiano Caruana, if they want to get real about their chances for World Championship, they simply have to stop. They have to get out of that rat race. Fine. They had enough. I mean, look, financially, I'm sure they're secure. Just turn everything down and prepare. I mean, they were in this position. They could still get those spots in the candidates. I mean, the rating changes, it fluctuates, but they were up on top as number 3 and number 2. And I don't know if Kramnik made up enough points, because it's going to be average of all published ratings every month, 12 published ratings. I mean, seriously. You have to prepare for this. You can't, like Nakamura said, oh, well, candidates was just another tournament. Wrong, Hikaru. It wasn't just another tournament. That's why you played it like that. I mean, I'm not saying, maybe, I don't know, it's hard to get in someone's head, and say what they really want in life. Maybe they don't want it. Maybe they're happy with what they got. They could have some other interests, Well, God be my witness, I always had interest, in other things. I was never completely focused on chess. Maybe some short periods, few years. I don't know about Lawrence Trent, he seemed to be a funny guy and all that, help Caruana to lighten up a little bit, to shed this image of a bookworm. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, Fabiano, well, for both Wesley and Fabiano, Wesley is about the same now. Look at him, everything is just gone, basically. All colors, they left his play. He sits there challenging Anish Giri and winning that challenge for being the most boring player in the tournament. I mean, if they're serious about their world championship ambition, well, they cannot follow this traveling circus, I mean, it may be okay, for Hikaru, Once again, I know Hikaru is going to get angry if he ever hears this or somebody tells him this. But, I mean, I could understand if Fabiano just said, okay, in my heart of hearts, I don't care. I mean, well, whatever, So I don't care. I just want to keep my rating, play these tournaments, make money, and concentrate on other things in life. Look, I would respect that. But Hikaru is older. Obviously both Fabiano and Wesley are younger. They still have time, which Caruana may or may not have. Oh, pardon, Nakamura may or may not have. So they really, really have to get on this. That's how it always was. Alright. Now, who else is there? Vashila Graf. Now, MVL also flat as a steak in a Mexican cantina. Alright, just flat, really. Nothing works. Like, openings, all these sharp lines that he worked out, now they all know them. He cannot surprise them. No, look at his game with Giri. It's kind of a simple accelerated dragon from the last round. MVL misplays it, just completely misplays it. His pawn sack was unnecessary, and then he played wrong moves after that. Basically, 22 moves into game, he's lost with white pieces. A sign of frustration. And Giri made a nice psychological trick on him by going into the dragon. Now, what to do? I really don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I kind of always felt that MVL maybe a little bit overachieved at some moment when he broke through into this elite level. I mean, I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but no, well, it's just my opinion. Now, he's probably good enough to stay there, but I don't know. I don't really know what he needs to do. It's kind of difficult now at the age of 27 to reinvent your game, particularly to do it on the fly. The window is closing, of course, for Naka. I mean, seriously, what do you think? It's going to be 30 years old this year. I mean, it's going to be harder and harder to do this. No, well, I don't know. Well, I mean, obviously, anybody can prove me wrong. Because, for example, the way these guys are playing, all of them. Now Magnus Carlsen descended from the heavens, and now he joined them. We have total parity in this, on top of chess world. Total parity, There's hardly much difference in playing strength. If Magnus really is is like that now. Well, we still give him a chance to jump up and go back to 2850. And okay, I doubt he would go higher, but 2850 possibly. But if he doesn't do this, if everything continues, then we have this. Well, it always happens when same people play each other all the time. They come to the lowest common denominator. That's how it is. MVL. No, but Anand and Kramnik, no. Well, anyways, talk about Kramnik. So Kramnik had, I don't know if it was game of his life, obviously. He won the World Championship match against previously undefeated Garry Kasparov, but I'm sure Vladimir was very happy to beat Carlsen. He hadn't won a game against Magnus in 7 years. And that was really a big achievement. And the game was quite nice. But now he's blocked against Vashila Graf, and he goes for this line, right? D5. It had been played before, and it has sort of a checkered reputation. I mean, it's attractive, aggressive, and all that, but there are certain things that Black exposing himself to. Now, this move, White doesn't have to take on d5, but that's the main line. Now, this line was invented and first time played by Fabiano Caruana against Jeffrey Chong. US Championship this year. And it continued this way. Well, Black probably has to play it because I'm thinking if he slows down with this, then his queen later on. Probably not now. White can castle or play knight d2. Eventually it's going to be bishop a3 threatening b5. And it's going to be annoying against the rook over there, and the pawn is not sufficiently protected. Well, Black created a lot of difficulties for himself by playing d5. The only way to solve these difficulties is to push through. And that's what Jeffrey did, and repeated by Kramnik. So they reached this position, king c2. And in the game I'm quoting, the young Jeffrey Chong played knight d6. Probably it's not enough to equalize. He actually stood worse and significantly worse. But he's a tough cookie, that kid, you know. And Caruana was not in good form in the championship. And eventually Chong not only equalized, outplayed him and had some real winning chances. The game was drawn. But Kramnik comes up with an improvement, and that's really a good one. Knight h4, trying to win this knight. But just bishop d7. f5. It turns out that if white goes f3, black has this move. Then he takes this. Surprisingly, in this position, when he's forced to go bishop e7, he's not going to pay any heavy price for, you know, being pinned like this, because he actually has a threat, returning with the bishop to f5 and pinning. Once white spends a tempo getting the rook out or king away, then black can castle and he's perfectly fine. Actually, it's white who's underdeveloped. Well, yeah, Topalov, but no, well, you can't expect much from Topalov now. Not in I mean, much in terms of like showing up for every tournament, fighting hard and studying to maintain his rating. He'd done his duty, you know. Well, he loves chess, and I'm sure he will play occasionally here and there, and I look forward seeing him again. Veselin is simply one of my favorite people in the chess world. But he's a family man now, and it, you know, he had a long time coming, you know, to settle down, and I mean, he's over 40 years old, you know. Like, I mean, time to hang it. So here, if f3, then there's bishop f2. So MVL goes for this. Everything, I'm sure, has been analyzed by Kramnik. And Kramnik counted on this position as a pretty decent one with compensation. And it's true. The pawn on d5, it's a passed pawn, but it's nicely blockaded. Great active bishops. Insufficient development from white. And I thought Maybe it's a little risky. Maybe knight a3 had to be played, but maybe not. I don't know. It was a choice. Problem with this, that now the rook gets awkward, right? Black has a threat of taking and playing bishop e2. Awkward for this rook. Really awkward position. Okay, so he played h3. Now black takes, and now white pawn's compromised. Lose. Short castle probably is the right move. Get the rook on the f-file quicker. Well, at this moment, I'm sure Kramnik was happy with his position, and I'm sure he was stealing looks at the Carlsen game, as I already said before, because combination of a Carlsen loss and Kramnik's win would make Kramnik #1 in the live rating list. Well, Anish deserves a lot of respect too, and so is Karyakin, for all this. I mean, all this kind of talk, that chess players, they have to be some kind of a maladjusted weirdos, like that. I mean, I don't know. I wish this talk would stop. I mean, there are a lot of writers and Hollywood, they made a lot of disservice, to chess by always portraying chess players as some kind of pretty much nutcases. And I remember this book, Illusion Defense, by Nabokov, who will not make a list of my favorite writers ever, of course. But I don't know, I never liked this book, I mean, not just because, it's kind of, I find this kind of offensive, for chess playing community. This way. And okay, well, I've seen people in chess world, who probably more insane than Comrade Illusion, but are they the majority of chess players? Of course not. Most of us, we just like all others, we make mistakes, but we try to make things right, I don't know. No, we work, we pay taxes, we raise children, and that's what we have to do. And it's what ultimately, you're right, of course. That's what needs to be done. Yeah, Illusion Defense was no, I didn't watch the movie. If I don't like the book, I would never watch a movie based on the book. Sometimes like this, I like this book, Cloud Atlas. Well, I mean, it wasn't anything special, but I kind of like it. Remember, there was a movie made of that, and I didn't expect much, and the movie was simply terrible. Black and white like days and nights. No, I don't know that. What's it about? Bosh. I don't know. Oh, pawn sacrifice. Give me a break. They get some random guy, as a chess consultant over there. How can you make a movie about Bobby Fischer? There are still people alive who knew him very well, and not to invite them be chess consultants. What about Lombardi? Why wasn't he consulted on this movie? No, well, I understand that Fischer, but whatever. You're making a movie about him. You gotta get some people involved who knew him. There was no one there who knew anything about Fischer, or anything about chess for that matter, involved in the making of this movie. I will never watch it, of course not. Anyway, so I thought, that Kramnik was very happy with life and everything, but, some tough defense there from MVL. So he allows the knight to come to e3, and from Black's point of view, he's not sure how to handle this position, because he can get his pawn back easily, but White would play this move knight c4. And already here we see the beginning of problems that would later plague Black, is that there's going to be some action on the queen side. And for that kind of action, the White king is very well positioned. And Black king is very far away. So this, and rook d8, it all looks logical. I don't know about this move, bishop b2. MVL is totally off form. I mean, he had to bother this knight, right? Well, he could play this move fairly easily. Now, what would happen here? I looked at some lines. What are we looking at? Knight takes g2? Hang on, let me find my analysis. It's all about to move a5, people. That's all I want. I want to hit that bishop that must protect the knight. Check. On knight takes g2, a5. Where is this bishop gonna go? Sit on a7. White is already like pretty much developed. Now this is a bad move. Now this is not gonna work at all. You got the knight hanging. You gotta deal with that pawn. Passer. White is simply winning here. That's why the king had to go to b2 to make sure that the rook is protected. Now I believe that white is simply gonna win this game. So it's deceptive. This whole position is deceptive. I thought that maybe this would be the best. It's little awkward to keep the bishop on f2. And actually I think the knight is protected now with the back g pawn. It's probably about equal. Samuel, who's totally off form, plays this. No, one thing is there, that off form or not, these guys can calculate. They rarely blunder unless they really get in time trouble. So he got everything under control. He dealt with all that stuff, knight b1. Everything was just nice. And now, realistically, the game had to end in a draw. Because Kramnik found a way to get his pawn back. He has a nice, obviously nice knight over there. I don't really know if this move is a mistake, but it's sort of... Maybe he could have waited with this move before white knight comes to d5 or b5 and then plays c6. He didn't want to unpin the knight too soon, but... No, rook f3 forces the issue. And now the knight is getting somewhere. Actually, if you look at this position, well, there is no reason for black to believe that he's better. Probably this is the moment, maybe the last moment where Kramnik could have gotten up and taken a look at what was going on at the other game. And if in the other game, if Karyakin was two pieces for a rook, winning, or could see him winning from a casual look, maybe that's affected Kramnik. He takes the pawn, that's alright, but after this... No, we used to this, the bishop dominating and all that, but it's not a fact, you know, with all these pieces present on the board. It would show itself best in its pure form, or at very least if one pair of rooks was traded. But white's pawn is very nicely advanced over there, and so it's the other one, and supported by the king. I think black should think caution first and play rook b8. After which, probably rook d1. Well, yeah, you can do this, but... Anyway, with so many pieces present on the board, there is a lot of tactics there, and, well, I don't think we can talk about the advantage of bishop over knight. Well, it's not the... It's not the clarified situation of the minor piece game. Here everything is very particular, probably about equal. So anyway, bishop d6. Oh, he could have played this move here, same thing, right? Rook d1 instead of bishop d6. Rook d1, okay, same thing. Bishop d6. I mean, it's kind of funny to even think that Kramnik could misunderstand some endgames, misevaluate rather. Okay, maybe misunderstand is a better word. Just simply do the wrong thing. Seemingly he did the wrong thing. by trading the minor pieces, he increased the activity of the white king. And even if there are two connected passed pawns over there, G and H, they're yet to get going. Well, white is going to be attacking b7. Obviously, cannot take b7 on account of this. That was the purpose of the move bishop d6. But after this, what do? The rook's coming to d7. So he took, and now he's worse. What turnaround? What a turnaround. And now, with 5 moves to reach the time control, he was low on time. He got off a good start, you need to play actively. But white has some tactics. In reply to this check, I don't know if he even saw this move. Well, now you take it with check, right? Then white has king c3. That hits the rook and threatens mate. There is only one move to play here. This. And now that. I don't know what was going on in Kramnik's head, because at least by this point he would have reached the time control. And while of course white is threatening to queen the pawn, as soon as we get rid of one pair of rooks, it appears to me that black can defend this position. It takes a long time for white to grab this pawn, and I mean one pawn will run much faster. Realistically, I threw in some variations here and there, and you don't have to worry about this. We've been going on for too long. A draw is the correct evaluation here. I mean, you play this, you take that pawn, and at least you reach the time control. Vladimir had such great instincts always, but I think maybe the combination of this nervous tension because of a chance to become number one, and the sudden turnaround in the game when he has to play for a draw, or maybe just simple fatigue. That's what did him in. He plays h5, terrible. Now the big difference. You take the pawn, the white king goes up. Well, for such positions, actually the king that it's closer to pawns is a big advantage. An attempt to move the pawn forward like this will only gonna lead you to getting mated by two rooks. So it's difficult for black to advance his pawns. And the fact that his pawn ahead, doesn't mean much. Obviously, this pawn is a difficult position. So even after time control, Vladimir had to give up this pawn. But MVL actually played this very well. Unlike Kramnik, he played a very unfortunate, if not outright losing move, rook g4. He was trying to support his pawns, but once again, his intuition had to tell him, you must drive the king in front of the pawns. He absolutely had to do this. I'm honestly shocked that he didn't do this. Okay, now black can practically play any move, because this is actually not a big deal. How are these pawns gonna go forward? Remind me. Check, there. This. Okay, you're already losing this one. It's not that automatic with 4 rooks. And you need to have the king in the way of the pawns. Yeah, instead, boy, he played rook g4. Letting the pawn go just like that. This is a great move from MVL. Now he demonstrates this idea. Rook a5. Well, kind of spoiling the pawns, but, helping that pawn queen. Great move. And now one last line that I analyzed in this game, because honestly I got a little tired and it was time for me to do other things. I like this line because it illustrates what happens when you in 4-rook endgames when you separate your king from pawns. This. Alright? Now we go forward. Check. Discover check. Either way you go, you get mated. How about that king d5 discover check? No, 4-rook endgames, well, they have their own rules and they're not that clearly defined. And for a player in the... I mean, obviously by that time already Karyakin blundered and lost, and Vladimir looked a little dejected, Maybe all this talk about that number one position is not important was just a ploy. Well, or whatever. I don't know what it was. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I hear people... I mean, obviously nobody interviews me and I don't need it because I can speak without being led anywhere with their questions. Thanks to you, by the way. But it's like, why do you always have to say this? Somebody asked him something obvious, like, wouldn't you want to become like number one in the world rankings? Wouldn't that be exciting? And they always say, oh, no, I can downplay it, Well, obviously, it's not true, right? They'll say, oh, I love to do this. I'll try my best tomorrow, and I can only hope that Magnus loses tomorrow. What's it? Case closed. What's wrong with that? I mean, obviously, to me, it's absolutely obvious that Kramnik was affected by all this. And it's not the first time it happened. I remember years and years ago, there was some jockeying for number one when they started doing this live rating list. It was 10 years ago. And they had one player to grab the number one position only to lose it the very next day by losing the game. It happened 3 times in a row. I think it was Anand. He loses, then Ivanchuk becomes number one. Ivanchuk loses, then Morozevich becomes number one. And then Morozevich loses. And after that you say it don't matter. Typical sports speak. No, well, I understand. No, well, chess, I guess it's just sign of times. Yep. Okay. Anyway, guys, so I'm glad, that you stayed with me and a little bit extended here, but I showed you everything and I almost said everything I had to say. Now, one last round remains. It's probably not going to change a whole lot in this tournament. I mean, Aronian loses, Nakamura wins the tournament, or Giri wins, and they both lose, and Giri shares first place with Aronian. In the final analysis, it's not so important. This tournament is probably going to be forgotten. The trend of Magnus dropping rating points and becoming just one of the guys, maybe first among equals, it may be establishing itself. But for those of you Magnus fans, I will have my parting words. Even if Magnus drops out of 2800, which in my opinion is unlikely, he's too good a player. Even if this happens, he's still a world champion. It's gonna be exceedingly hard to beat him in the match. The World Championship match. I don't see a direct correlation between those results and the rating drop and Magnus's chances against any of these guys in a World Championship match. I don't think they're diminished at all. Okay, with that, I bid you good night, and I guess I'll catch you guys later. And important, I will have my live shows, but not on Thursdays. Those gonna be recap shows from both Rapid and Blitz parts of Grand Chess Tour events in Paris and Leuven, Belgium. So I can tell you exactly. Of course, you should also follow announcements on the server. I can tell you exactly that my next show is gonna be on Friday, the 23rd, That's gonna be the recap of the Paris Rapid part, which is gonna be 3 days, and it's actually gonna end on Friday. I'm gonna have very little time before the end of that and start of the show. Usual time, 6 p.m. server time. So the 23rd, Friday, please mark it on your calendar. And then it's gonna be a Sunday to recap the Blitz. Same time, Sunday the 25th. And then the next week, when all the players move from France to Belgium, I'm gonna have the same schedule. Thank you so much, guys, and you take care.